You know, when a horrifying crime story breaks, we're all captivated, right? Especially by the rescue. The headlines are all about the survivor. But what really happens after the cameras pack up and leave? Today, we're diving into the story of Shasta Groene to understand the lifelong battle that starts the moment the public ordeal is over. This quote? Wow. It comes from Shasta years after her rescue, and it just hits you. She's remembering people justifying her meth use. It perfectly shows the impossible trap she was in. Her horrific past became a perpetual excuse, a label that explained her pain, but also, in a twisted way, kept her chained to it. So to really understand this story, we're not going to start back in 2005. No, we're going to start right now, in the present, with a crisis that shows you just how fragile a survivor's life can be, even decades down the road. This fire is so much more than just a tragic event. It's a devastating symbol for Shasta's life. She had built this home, a piece of stability that was paid for by the compensation for her trauma. And then, in a flash, it was gone. It's this brutal reminder that for some survivors, the ground is never truly solid beneath their feet. And that really brings us to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? We all remember the headlines about the brave little girl who survived. But her story didn't end there. We're going to explore the messy, complicated, and incredibly painful reality of a life that has to be lived in that aftermath. All right, now let's go back. Let's go back to the summer of 2005. Because to understand the woman Shasta is today, we have to understand the 48-day ordeal that forged the trauma she still carries with her every single day. Okay, so on May 16th, 2005, a predator named Joseph Duncan broke into the Groene home. He murdered Shasta's mother, Brenda, her mother's boyfriend, Mark, and her 13-year-old brother, Slade. Then he abducted 8-year-old Shasta and her 9-year-old brother, Dylan, taking them deep into the wilderness. For 48 days, they were held captive, until Shasta was finally rescued, alone. This slide really shows a chilling contrast. From a distance, their campsite might have looked almost normal, But the reality was a complete nightmare. Instead of telling ghost stories, Duncan forced these children to listen to him describe his other murders in detail. This wasn't a camping trip. It was a psychological torture chamber. Just think about the weight on this 8-year-old's shoulders. Jet was Duncan's nickname, and Shasta realized very quickly that her brother was the primary target of his rage. So she made a calculated decision. Become a shield. Suppress her own fear to protect Dylan. That's a burden no child should ever have to bear. Her rescue was a miracle. It was a moment of triumph that was broadcast across the entire nation. But for Shasta, stepping out of those woods was like stepping into a brand new kind of prison, one with invisible walls. The end of her captivity came at a Denny's restaurant, of all places. Duncan had brought her there, and the staff, they were observant, they recognized her from a flyer. A quick-thinking waitress named Amber pretended the ticket printer was broken just to stall for time while the manager called 911. After police took Duncan away, the waitress slid into the booth with Shasta, and her first question was the one the whole country was asking. "Now where's your brother?" the waitress asked. And with just 2 words, "He's in heaven." 8-year-old Shasta confirmed the nation's worst fear. Dylan was dead. He had been murdered by Duncan at the campsite. Her public ordeal was finally over, but her private one was really just beginning. Healing wasn't as simple as just going home. She was immediately confronted by a whole new set of challenges. The media circus was relentless. Her father, Steve, was grieving and consumed by his own trauma, which made their relationship incredibly volatile. And there was this intense pressure on her to be a perfect symbol of survival. When her trauma came out in destructive ways, she was sent to a controversial treatment center that often did more harm than good. Think about this for a second. When 13-year-old Shasta was sent to this VISTA program, this was a list of problems they were trying to fix. Instead of seeing a child survivor of unimaginable horror, the system saw a collection of disorders. It's just a stunning example of how we often blame victims for the ways they try to cope with their pain. So, in the years that followed, the weight of being Shasta Groene, the survivor, just became immense. It shaped her entire identity, her relationships, and her struggle to find herself beyond that one single tragedy. Because she was also from the Intermountain West and had, for a time, attended the same treatment center, Shasta was constantly being compared to Elizabeth Smart. Elizabeth became this powerful advocate, right? A symbol of poised, articulate survival. For Shasta, whose healing journey was so much messier, this created an impossible standard to live up to. When Shasta finally met Elizabeth Smart backstage at an event, she was hoping for a moment of connection, a shared understanding between two survivors. Instead, she felt completely dismissed. This encounter, as she tells it, was deeply painful. It just reinforced her feeling of isolation and the sense that her messy survival story didn't fit the neat public narrative. To really understand Shasta's psychology, we have to talk about this term, appeasement. It's a concept some therapists are using now instead of Stockholm Syndrome. It's not about affection at all. It's a conscious survival strategy. Shasta saw Duncan targeting her brother, so she worked to get on Duncan's good side, to become his friend, to redirect his focus onto her and away from Dylan. It was an act of profound sacrifice. And that sacrifice, on top of the entire ordeal, left these deep, deep scars. Her teenage and adult years became this cycle of addiction, arrests, and chaos. To the outside world, she just looked like a troubled young woman. But these behaviors were the direct symptoms of a deep, untreated trauma that the world had celebrated her for surviving, but wasn't equipped to help her actually heal from. Moving to the present day, we see that Shasta's story isn't about some neat conclusion. Not at all. It's about the messy, ongoing nature of healing. Peace is not easily found when the wounds are this deep. You might think the deaths of the two central male figures in her life, her father and her captor, would bring some kind of closure. But life is rarely that simple. Her father's death was another loss in a life that's been defined by it. And when Joseph Duncan died of a brain tumor on death row, he escaped his execution. This quote from Shasta after Duncan's death just says it all. There was no victory, no final justice. For her, it felt as though the perpetrator got to escape into the peace of death, while she and the other victims' families were left to carry the pain for the rest of their lives. And it's so vital to remember that behind the headlines and the trauma, there's a woman of incredible depth. Those who know her describe her as smart, funny, and fiercely generous. She's a mother to 5 boys. She listens to the pain of others without any judgment. Her story isn't just one of tragedy, it's one of a relentless, day-by-day fight to live. And so we end with this question. Shasta Groene's story challenges our need for tidy endings. It shows us that for some, survival isn't a single event, but a lifelong process. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about learning how to carry it. It's not a straight line to recovery, but a messy, complicated, and deeply human journey that continues long, long after the world has stopped watching.